All right, we got Storm on today. Finally, we invited him back in November and had complications because my computer remembered that it was a computer, and so it wanted to crap out on me. But thank you, Storm, for finally coming on. You have awesome videos. I need to watch more of them. I don't watch enough of them.
Thank you, man. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of the Solar for Life podcast.
Oh yes,
And finally, cool that we managed to actually find the time to do it.
exactly. Yes. We'll try to keep it at 2 hours. I got a lot of stuff to do today because I'm going to go see John Wick 4 this evening.
John Wick. I've never actually seen any of them.
Ooh, you got to see them. They're great films. Great films. Where my wife is catching up on them today. Actually, um, we are
All three
going.
in one day.
I'm sorry.
All three in one day.
Well, we watched the first one a few days ago, and we finally watched the second one today, and she's watching the third one right now. I don't really need to watch them again because I've watched them more than her. Um, but we're actually going to go to a drive-in to see it. It's the first time she's ever
Oh,
been to one, and so that'll be fun.
wait. So, John Wick. Like, what's it usually about? Is it just like guns and action?
Have you seen the Transporter?
I don't think so. I'm not much of a movie guy actually.
Gotcha. Well, it's just it's an action movie. It's I like to think of it as gun dancing, gun choreography, but the basics story is just this dude is angry at these people for doing things to him that may seem very small but means a lot to him. And so basically just things kind of just develop from there, and then the world building is also spectacular. You just think, oh, it's not just some kind of assassin, breaking out of retirement. This is a whole nother world that they're unleashing, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's very charming.
Okay, it sound. I think I need to. I need to at least watch one of them and like in the next year or something like that.
Yeah, the first one is about as to put it, this might sound harsh, but it's very true. But the first one is very mundane when it comes to world building, but it's still a spectacular film. It's actually, if it would be my favorite one if it wasn't for the third movie. But I like how general it is, how it keeps everything general and straightforward. And then if you want to watch more, John Wick 2 develops significantly more on the world building. But number one keeps it very low key because they don't want to throw too much at
Uh,
you, of course, because they don't want to overcomplicate the movie itself. And you can tell that they threw some things in there just in case they wanted to build up on it later, which they definitely did.
right.
And so you would really have to watch it just to really understand what I'm talking about. It's just a spectacular set of films. John Wick 2 is my least favorite one, but John Wick 1 and 3 are awesome, and I can't. And apparently John Wick 4 is just totally blowing it out of the water right now. It's the longest movie. I believe it's 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yes, I saw apparently like it was over like 3 hours before before they
Mm-hmm.
did the final cut.
It's about 4 hours long.
That's insane. That's longer than Avengers Endgame. That's something.
Oh yes, it's I'm surprised how long I could just sit in the theater for 3 hours like that. I did that for Logan. I think I saw Logan twice in theater, and I saw Endgame twice, Infinity War twice, and it's amazing how long you can sit there.
Right, like especially if like the stories like and the actors do their job and if the story's good it just like keeps you engrossed. Like it's actually a tough thing to do. Like not many movies actually do that now. Like
Hmm.
sometimes when you watch movies on like streaming services and stuff, like we watch 10 minutes and we're like, yeah, I'll watch the rest at some point, and then you never get back to it.
I love the effect where you're watching a movie you really love, but you're checking the time to see how much longer it is because you just want more of it, and you're like, oh, please don't let it be almost over with. And then there's a reverse effect where a movie is so bad you're checking the time because it's going by so slowly, but
Yeah.
you find out you have 2 more hours left.
What's your favorite movie though?
My favorite movie of all time?
Yeah, let's say all time, yeah.
Ooh, probably Jaws. Um,
Oh,
either
that's a good one.
either Jaws or A Clockwork Orange, but I think I've been influenced by Jaws a lot more in terms of just filmmaking.
Like Jaws is such a good like horror film, like just everything from the sound design to like just the camera shots and everything. It's
Oh
and
yes,
especially for its time, like it when did it come out? Like the 80s or 90s or
1975.
even earlier than I than I thought it was.
It's amazing what they got away with, and the shark is so impactful that it feels like it's on screen a lot longer than it actually is, just because
Mm.
they nail the presence of the shark so well. The shark doesn't even have to be on screen for you to even be thinking about it.
Or like, I mean, like the thing I remember most about Jaws is just the sounds. Like, do you know the iconic like the Jaws theme, like when the shark, you know the shark's there, but you don't see it yet, and then
Hmm.
bam, shark.
Yes. I just wish there was an original cut for that. I think they lost a lot of footage. I think they almost lost a bunch of footage. I think, yeah, they almost lost all of it because the orca wasn't properly staying afloat. I think they lost a lot of
Oh,
equipment. There was a lot of complications with making the movie, but it's a miracle that they were actually able to get it out there. But still
right.
became one of the greatest films ever made, and one of my favorite film of all time.
Good film to have as your favorite.
And Jaws: The Revenge is actually a guilty pleasure. I love that movie. It's just so much fun. It's so weird, and sometimes I'm like, this has got to be a parody. And Jaws 3 originally was going to be a parody. It was going to be a National Lampoon's parody of Jaws, but then they turned it into a serious Jaws movie.
Oh,
And that one, that's the one I hate the most. I don't like Jaws 3 very much. I find it very boring. But Jaws: The Revenge is entertaining all the way through. I think, and it also has a funeral scene that actually does not include rain, so that's great.
it goes away from all the cliches and stuff.
Yeah, that's one thing John Wick does. There's a funeral and it's raining. I'm like, come on, guys.
I mean, if I think about it, like, in like this original Spider-Man trilogy, there was a funeral, but one of them didn't have rain, I think. I'm
Hmm.
not sure.
I know whenever I'm at a funeral and it starts raining, I'm like, how cliche.
Couldn't come up with anything else more creative.
Yeah, like a tornado. What kind of an earthquake or something like that? Something interesting.
Spice things up.
Oh yes, I wonder if anyone's ever been at a funeral during a tornado. That's had to have happened at least a few times.
I mean, maybe, but like the chances must be like like 0 point something percent.
Well, they probably don't even go through with the funeral if they're aware of severe weather in the first place.
Yeah, it's not a risk that people want to take.
Oh yeah, you don't want your loved one flying around in the air. But let's talk about some Resident Evil 4 real quick. What are your
All
thoughts
right.
so far? I noticed you made a post about it. I didn't read all of it, but um,
So wait, how far in are you? How much are you
I
played of it
just
so
wrapped
far?
up chapter one.
Oh, chapter. Okay, right. So I'm a good a whole lot of ways ahead of you.
Okay.
So like I'll try and keep it like as non-spoilers as possible
Hmm.
because even if it is a remake, it does stuff that's significantly different from the original, I think.
Oh yes, the level designs are totally different. I mean, the
Mm.
village is pretty much spot on, but everything else I've seen has been very different.
Yeah, like I mean of course like the very first house is expanded upon,
Hmm.
and that's something that I think adds a lot more to the horror of the whole situation. That makes it feel a lot more survival horror than action horror.
Right.
And later on in the like I'm in the castle right now. I think I'm wrapping up the castle. Like there's some sections there that are a whole lot scarier than they were in the original.
Nice. I'm just so glad the quick time events are gone.
Oh yeah. But like I'm happy that like the quick time events that they have implemented like this are just like one button presses, not like pressing both R2 and L2 at the same time, or both or two like Y button and the A button on like the controller.
What's your opinion on Ramon Salazar looking like Maud?
Uh, I mean I think his design's interesting.
Because I remember I saw the trailer and he walked down. And I was like, why is Maud in Resident Evil 4? I was thinking about
But
the theme song popping up. Dun, wait, what is it? Yeah, dun na 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 dun na 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 na.
I mean even if his design is a little interesting, like we said, his voice actor is doing a superb job with him,
Oh
I
yes,
think.
yeah. I'm not criticizing it. I just thought it was wild that they picked that design.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen what was it, Sadler's design from the trailers?
Sadler. I'm trying to. Sorry, trying to remember the names. That's the main guy, right? The main
The
villain.
main guy.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually seen him at the end of chapter one.
Because like, have you seen him when they in the trailer when like he had his hood off?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that is. I don't understand what they're thinking there. That's probably the most outlandish like design they've done so far.
Is it really that different? I don't remember. Um.
I mean, I don't think he took off his hood in the original.
Uh. Okay. I'm looking at pictures. He just had some balding going on basically instead of being totally bald. In
Yeah,
this version, he's actually in this version. It looks like he kind of has like a Pennywise thing going on. I think.
yeah, like kind of like how the last plug is like it is infecting his brain more and it's a bit
Right.
more prevalent on the skull and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks weird.
Almost when I first saw it, I thought he had cornrows.
Wait, what's cornrows?
It's where you have your hair braided.
Ah, okay, okay.
Just I don't know if braided is the right word, but it's just braided, but laying flat on your scalp.
Yeah, yeah. No, okay, I can see it now. I can see it. Yeah.
So how are you playing? Are you playing any restrictions? Or are you basically just playing just a general playthrough?
I mean, I'm trying to do a general playthrough, but like trying to do as much as possible as I can, like
Mm-hmm.
without like rushing myself or taking it too slow.
Right.
Because like I'm not much of a completionist, but like I like to do as get as much done on my first playthrough. Because like usually when I finish a game, I don't go back and play them. Only in like super specific,
Oh.
yeah, super specific situations. I mean, like Hades, for example. Like I can play that game like literally forever because it's a roguelike.
I still need to
But
play
like
Hades.
you haven't played Hades yet?
No, people recommend it to me all the time. I just I haven't gotten around to it. I don't own it or anything like that, but I'm just kind of hoping PlayStation offers it for a good price.
I mean, I think now because like it costs 20 bucks, I think, and
Hmm.
I think for that like it's on a constant sale all the time just because it's 20. It's such a good game.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to. It would you call it? I mean, what does it do differently compared to other roguelikes?
It implements the story a lot more heavily with every death that you do. Like you every time like you die, you go out into like Hades's world, and then when you die, like for example in Tartarus, and you get sent back, then like some characters you met on the way there, like they will have different dialogue options with you in the actual house of Hades. So
Oh,
Hades can be like a bit more frustrated with you when you've killed one of the Furies in Tartarus, or maybe Nyx, Hades, Zagreus' mother, who is the main character of the game. She'll give him some advice on what he can do next and stuff like that.
okay. Um, See, roguelike, I haven't really appreciated the aspect until I played Nobody Saves the World. Some dungeons has a roguelike aspect where it changes the layout of the level. Not everything is roguelike, it's just these particular caves that are changing. And for some reason that worked for me. I don't know why, but whenever I play any other dedicated roguelike game, I can't seem to tolerate it for very long, but in Nobody Saves the World it worked.
That's interesting.
I want
Which roguelikes have you played before?
I played Dead Cells. I liked that one for a little while, but I eventually got tired of it. I tried Returnal, but I don't think I gave that. I think I played that at the wrong time. I think I was kind of. Felt like I was forcing myself to try it out.
A lot of people said it was such a good game.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much everybody that has played it has praised it. What else do we have? I think wasn't the Binding of Isaac roguelike?
Yeah, I think it's a roguelike. Yeah,
Yeah, I tried that
yeah, it
one.
is.
I tried Spelunky. There was another
Was
game I can't remember that was roguelike that I actually enjoyed. Um, it was I think it was free through well not free but accessible through PlayStation Plus. Some kind of shooter. Dang, I can't remember the name of it. It was a very comic booky kind of it was 2D, but yeah. What else? That's all I can
that
remember.
doesn't ring any bell. That last one didn't ring any bells for me.
Hold on. Let me see if I can maybe pull it up. Let's see. 2D rogue like game. Maybe I need to look up shooter. It's weird. It must be very it must be a hidden gem or something, but shooter. I don't know. Maybe he's not considered a roguelike, but the layout changes. Uh
Maybe
Heck.
it's a Metroidvania.
I don't not I don't think it is. Yeah, I can't find it for some reason. That's strange. I thought it would at least pop up. But anyway. Um but getting back to
Oh, wait, I remember Enter the Gungeon.
wait, is that it?
I think so. I
What
think it is.
what is it?
Enter the Gungeon.
Enter the Gungeon?
Yeah.
That doesn't look like it's it.
Because it's
No,
2D and you shoot stuff.
that's not it. This looks like a
Oh,
comic
okay.
book. If I find it, I'll text it to you later. But right now, for some reason, I cannot remember the name of it. Maybe I can look it up on my PlayStation real quick. My library.
We're trying everything we can to find the mystery game.
Yeah, I know. Heck, if I can pull up my library. Um, where is my? Now I can't find my library. Um, oh yeah, here we go. Played. Blah blah blah. Dark Souls, Dark Souls, Dark Souls, Dark Souls.
For Dark Souls.
Before Dark Souls, yeah. Come on, I know it's got to be popping up right here. Oh, come on. Oh, Fury Unleashed. That's it.
Oh, I've never heard of that one. Yeah.
That's actually a really fun game.
Fury Unleashed. Oh, these images look pretty interesting. Kind of,
Oh, yeah,
it kind
okay.
of has the Dead Cells. Kind of looks like Dead Cells, but just a bit more, not as Dead Cells.
Right. So yeah, I need to get back into that one. I didn't have any major problems with it, from what I remember, but
I actually tried Dead Cells for the first time last week.
oh really?
Yeah, because like I saw that the new Castlevania DLC for it like came out,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, okay, I need to play Dead Cells so that I can get to the Castlevania DLC. But then I also want to play all the other Castlevania games before I play the Castlevania DLC. So now I'm just playing through Dead Cells and also playing through the first Castlevania for the first time.
So how many Castlevania games have you played?
So far one.
Which one?
Castlevania 1, the very first one.
Oh, man. If you want my recommendations, Symphony of the Night, Lament of
Oh,
Innocence, Curse of Darkness, Area of Sorrow, and I think that's it.
I heard also Rondo of Blood is pretty good as well.
Yeah, that one too. That one's more traditional.
That's
But
before
it's
they took the Metroidvania style, right?
yeah. That one has spectacular level design. I need to finish it someday. It gets really brutal at one particular part.
Like
Um,
Dark Souls brutal.
More like Cuphead kind of brutality, where you got
Oh,
so many
okay,
things
okay.
kind of going after you at the same time. I don't know, maybe a mix of both. I'm going off loosely off of memory. It's been maybe over a year since I played it, so that's I don't remember exactly what kind of difficulty it was.
I mean, also a reason like why I'm also so like invested in Castlevania right now is also I started watching the Castlevania Netflix show for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like one of the best video game adaptations I've seen. Like
Oh yeah, it was really.
it's so good.
Well, I actually stopped watching that season 3. I think I haven't watched it since.
I'm on season towards the end of season 2 now. I love it.
I don't know why I haven't gone back. I don't know, just haven't.
Time.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. I'm gonna have to work out maybe a podcast a month sort of deal. I can't just do multiple. See, that's what happened. last year is last year and the beginning of this year I was just doing so many podcasts, and it just my computer was filling up with so much data, and I had the clips that I wanted to upload, so I'm gonna have to set a certain amount of clips to upload because I don't have to clip everything in the podcast, just enough to
Like the
kind of.
important parts.
Right, yeah, just parts where I thought the discussion was interesting, and plus it wasn't repeated because I don't want to upload something that I've already said before, which
Right, yeah,
I'm
like
bad
keep
about
every
doing.
clip like. Have you uploaded repeat clips before, or like similar clips?
What do you mean exactly?
Like when you've been uploading like some of your podcast clips, when like that two like past podcasts, like they actually spoke about the same thing, but like you've uploaded them regardless those sections.
There might be maybe a few of them where I'm talking about. I love talking about the history of the dark of how I got started with Dark Souls and Demon Souls. So that might be up twice of me explaining that story two different times.
I mean, it's a good story to explain
Yeah.
the first Souls experience.
But if you want to listen to the story, it's on one of the clips
Yeah,
somewhere.
and
Um,
two times in fact, so you can get two times the enjoyment of the story.
yeah, exactly. Two different perspectives. But going back to Resident Evil 4, what do you think about the brute on in chapter 1? We'll just stay in chapter 1.
All right, the chainsaw man.
No, the brute, the guy with the minotaur head.
Oh, okay, that guy, the yeah, it's cool enemy. I didn't expect them to like, add like new enemies and stuff. I mean, I expected them to change some up a bit and
Mm-hmm.
like, and I mean that enemy really showcases like the dodging and the parrying system really well. Like you can like the quick time event to like just press circle and then suddenly you duck and then like the parry as well.
There is a dodge mechanic?
There is certain attacks like if they come at you like horizontally, you can press the circle button to go under the attack.
Okay. I haven't seen that prompt up. See, I don't know if you watched any of the videos I've uploaded from the past day, but I'm playing without the heads up display, so whenever something props up, I don't see it.
Ah, the no HUD experience.
Yeah, that's been very interesting. I'm surprised I haven't done that before in a Resident Evil game where I just play without the rectile, the gun rectile, and it's actually pretty wild and it adds a lot of atmosphere, a lot of tense moments.
Have you done that type of like in implementation before, like just removing the HUD and
Oh
stuff?
yes, yeah, I've been doing that for a while. I first started with Dark Souls. Whenever I started recording boss fights, I would just do it without the heads up display, and I did it a lot more in Elden Ring, and it definitely adds so much tense, so much thrill to the boss because you don't know when the boss is going to die because obviously it removes their life bar. So you're just
Mm.
kind of you're committing to a strategy that works for the most part, and then you're adapting to everything else going on. So
Right,
basically,
yeah.
you just got to keep going. Sometimes you can get a sense, kind of like when the microwave is about to get finished. That's kind of the same thing because you're like, oh, I know the last strike's coming, but not quite yet. And the same thing when you're sitting on the couch waiting for the microwave to ding. Is I don't know. I kind of look at it as the same thing, but once you get that final strike in, it's just so incredibly satisfying. If you haven't done that yet, I highly recommend it. At least do it for one of the smaller bosses in Elden Ring or something. Maybe Soldier of
Uh,
Godric.
oh, of course, yeah. Soldier of Godric, really intense fight there.
Yeah, I remember when I first started playing Elden Ring, I had to weaken myself so much just so I could get a proper analysis of his fight. So I think I had like a 2 minute fight for him where I had to apply a no rolling strategy. I had to one hand my weapon, and even one handing my club. I was also a wretch. I was rune level 1, and still I was way overpowered. So I had to hit him every once in a while just so I can get 2 minutes of footage.
I mean, it's a good tutorial boss. Well, in like in the not like in the term of like Souls boss, but like as a tutorial boss, like teaching you how like the general stuff works.
Yeah, I guess it's a good
But it
mo.
is,
Hmm.
it is a bit like a bit non creative to like just make a normal enemy super buff, give him lots of health, and well, not that much health even.
I suppose he's a good motivator for the general experience. So it's like someone's brand new to the series, into the From Software games, and they go in and they might struggle a little bit with Soldier Godric, but when they get him, they're like, oh man, I want to explore a little bit more, and then finally they run into Margit.
Yeah. What was your first boss in Elden Ring, considering like the size and the whole area of everything?
um,
Besides Soldier of Godric.
Besides Soldier of Godric, it was the Erdtree Watchdog. No, sorry, it was the Beast of Farum Azula.
Oh, that was also my first one. And then like you have the mad lads that go out for the tree sentinel first once they see it.
I didn't even notice the tree sentinel at first, because once I walked out, I walked straight forward, and then I found the church. But for some reason, the tree sentinel was not. I just didn't see him for some reason. He must have been angled just right. Because when I walked back eventually, I saw him walking around. I'm like, well, that guy's obviously going to be overpowered right now.
Yeah. Wow. So you just walk straight past him.
Yeah, didn't even notice him. And then once I started listening to stories of people playing Elden Ring, they're like, man, that freaking tree dude at the beginning, man, that real guy on the horse is way overpowered. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what the From Software games do. They just something's overpowered, you come back later and get an overpower him.
Yeah.
I
mean, From Soft boss, like the first one, like is usually just probably like arguably one of the best bosses that they have in the game.
Oh yes, which one, Tree Sentinel, or just in general?
In general, like Tree Sentinel or Margit, if we're going to like main bosses.
You know, it's weird. Out of all the bosses I've done and analyzed, Margit still makes me nervous.
How so?
He's just his aggressiveness. When I walk in, I never seem to have unless I'm just pacing far away. I never really have a good control of his fight up close. I mean, his first phase a little bit more than the second phase, because the second phase gets crazy with the constant attacking.
Yeah, the hammers and the daggers and stuff.
Right. So I'm just wondering if you could parry him in the second phase at all. I'm pretty sure you can. That's what next time I play Elden Ring, I'm going to develop a bigger parrying strategy, because Margit's the one fight I just haven't nailed parrying wise. And that way I can get a lot more comfortable with spacing around him, because I'll know if he does one particular attack, I'll be like, I got you.
Yeah. Towards the end of my first playthrough of Elden Ring, I started to I wanted to parry more, but I was also playing Dark Souls at the same time, the first Dark Souls. Both first time playing at the same time, and I had gotten to the end of Dark Souls 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then I walk into Gwyn's room.
Right.
And then I realized that, okay, I need to parry. So I started learning how to parry it with those like few soldiers that they just put outside of like the Gwyn's place.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I know how to parry now. Now I'm gonna go to Elden Ring and try and parry some stuff there. And it translated a bit, I didn't master the parry in Elden Ring, but it helped. Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite parrying tool in Elden Ring?
I mean, I've only used the shield.
The buckler?
I don't remember. Think I used the I think I used the. No, I don't remember. I just remember like I just chose one of the shields.
Oh, okay. Well, you know each one has different registering frames, right?
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, buckler is the most generous one, and the parrying dagger is one of the most strict parrying frames. That's actually the one I use because it just matches my timing preference. And that's the great thing about these games, is that there's plenty of parrying tools you can use to fit your timing preference.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, definitely.
And the buckler is pretty much the perfect thing to start out with. That's what I started with in Elden Ring. Was the buckler shield, and that learned that taught me how to get the timings down, and then eventually I found I was actually after the parrying dagger when I first started Elden Ring, because I used them in the other games, but I had no idea where it was, and ended up being like very early in the game, because with patches he sells you the parrying dagger, but I had no idea where he was at. I had to look it up eventually to find him, and he was in a very I only he was in a spot that I walked past several times, and I just didn't happen to look to the left.
Oh yeah, that cave by the water, right?
Yeah, where the invader comes in and the
Yeah, yeah.
NPC comes in and helps you.
I mean, it's such a like it's in the middle of the open space, but like it's still, even if it's so open, it's so closed off at the same time.
Right.
It just shows how big Elden Ring actually is. It's
Oh
crazy.
yes, I have so many cosplay ideas that I still want to do. I finished my Gary Bunda from Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. I was going to make a video about it, but usually that's a good showcase for maybe a PvP video, which I don't PvP anymore. So I just basically just made a short little clip of the intro, the intro from the show, and that was basically all I did. And plus, I uploaded fights with the build, and I had every little piece of detail of what tools I was using, and that's about as far as it went. And I figured that was enough. If anyone had any questions, I could answer them, obviously.
That sounds pretty cool.
um, Resident Evil 4. We keep
Oh yeah, we keep going off
yeah.
away from Resident
That's
Evil 4.
yeah. That's just how discussions work on here. We have a main topic, and it just goes off the Elden Ring eventually.
Yeah, everything comes
Yeah,
back to Elden Ring.
pretty much
I mean,
every guest is like that.
there is pairing in Resident Evil 4, so it's Dark Souls.
Yeah, I read a comment where someone said, "Oh, the parrying in Resident Evil 4 is so much better than the Dark Souls." I'm like, "Oh, come on."
I think the pairing that they did in Resident Evil 4 is super super good. Minus the when the big chainsaw guy tries to attack you with that parry
Hmm.
one, but like with the normal enemies, I really, it's so satisfying.
Yeah, it's just after you parry for so long in the From Software games, it seems very generous in Resident Evil 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's generous, but like the presentation of it and the sound and
Yes.
just
Yeah.
the feel of the controller, it just feels so
Oh
good.
yeah, the presentation is spectacular. It's just I'm moving. Your instinct kind of kicks in where you wanna parry. You're looking for a very tiny window when there's not a tiny window because it's massive. I don't know if it
Yeah.
changes with hardcore mode, which is what I'm on. So I haven't really noticed the difference with that in terms of registering windows.
I mean, also with the parrying as well, you can't parry forever because like the knife durability.
Yep. I thought that was a very awesome change, was actually adding durability to the knife. Usually I wouldn't like durability on weapons, but for this game it works really well because because it's a horror game. It's supposed to be thrilling and it's supposed to
Yeah,
be tight.
100%.
Yes, and so I definitely welcome that change with big arms.
I feel like it's a bit funny because like I feel like the parrying is in Resident Evil 4, like the knife durability is a lot more it lasts a lot longer than actual weapons in Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild weapons just break in like 4 hits, and then you have to go find the next bokoblin and take their stuff.
Ah man, you shouldn't have said that. I was about to go try Breath of the Wild again, but it's worse than Resident Evil 4.
I mean, weapon durability wise, in terms of durability,
Yeah,
yes. In terms
man.
of like, but in terms of like quality of the games, I think Resident Evil 4 is pretty close,
Hmm.
maybe even better.
Oh no, I'm still waiting to get a strategy guide to play Breath of the Wild again. I just really want to follow a guide.
How much of Breath of the Wild have you played?
Uh, I think I got to the village where you had to dress up as a woman,
Oh,
and
okay. The Gerudo Valley,
yeah, and
or the
that's
Gerudo place.
that's kind of where I stopped because I didn't know where else to go.
Oh, even if you didn't follow, even if they had like the map marker for like the main quest, or
Well, I think I was at a particular spot where they were like, "Oh, you gotta go look for something," but maybe I did something wrong. I don't know. I know there was a huge colossal creature in the desert. Um,
yeah.
the only thing I remember was having to find places to take photos. I don't know if that's part of the main quest or a side objective,
Ah,
but
okay, right. We have to find the memories,
yeah,
right?
memories.
Mm.
Is that a main quest?
It's from what I know, I think you need to do that to get like the true ending.
Well, everything's technically optional, right? Because you can walk
It
right
is,
straight to Ganon.
right? Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I need to play it
And
again with a different approach.
yeah. I'd say so. Maybe leave that like area for the last, maybe, or maybe it is left for the last, or follow a strategy guide.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like a strategy guide would increase my enjoyment for the game. That way, I have kind of like a guidance some in some way. But
So in a sense, the game was too open for you in a way,
I,
maybe.
I guess because I found myself just getting really sleepy walking around, which is what usually happens to me in open world games. Which is another reason why I don't care for open world games that much because I just kind of get sleepy walking around so much.
I haven't played that many open world games like the Assassin's Creed games or Far Cry. I have not played any of them, so I don't know like I don't think I've played a bad open world in a sense.
I guess we can with that we can lead into one of the five questions I gave you, which is what are open world games? What are open world games missing in your opinion?
It's a tough question. That's actually the one question I couldn't write any bullet points for.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like because I've played Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring, Cyberpunk, and just three examples of like, in my opinion, like 10 out of 10 open world games. But they're all so different in how they present their open world. Like in Breath of the Wild, it's so open that you can just go from A through Z because there's no like right way of progressing forward.
Hmm.
And in Elden Ring, it's the combat. It's front and center. It's just the thrill of the soul's thrill, but just in open world with so many bosses all around the world. And then there's Cyberpunk. Have you played Cyberpunk?
No, I didn't really care for the way it looked when it was coming out with trailers and footage, so I never touched it.
Because I think Cyberpunk has like, in my opinion, like the most like beautiful but like condensed open world. Because Night City is just I can't describe it. It's just it's so beautiful. Just like it's probably the only game like where because usually I like when I play games I just like sprint through everything,
Mm-hmm.
but still take my time, like sprint back and forth. But this is like one game where I walk and I like look at all the skyscrapers. It's just beautiful art direction in my opinion.
I know one thing that I would love to see more open worlds do is that kind of whenever they ask you for a difficulty option, I would love to see more organic guidance placed into the higher difficulties. Because on easy mode, you should be able to have the inorganic guidance with the whole, go over here and go over there, and then you can just finish the game as fast as you want to. But with the organic guidance, let's just say take Grand Theft Auto 5 for example. Maybe instead of having a GPS or just a marker showing you where to go, you can follow newspapers or word of mouth to get to where you need to go.
Right? Yeah. That's a really good. Yeah. I like that concept.
I'm just wondering how, it's asking a lot from the developers, but how much is that asking? Because the game that I want maybe just be too much for developers in terms of just marketing and sales wise. Because I would love to have Elden Ring is definitely the best open world game I've ever played just because of how it's designed. However, will I ever be able to get a Grand Theft Auto like game that has nothing but organic guidance? Because when you design a game these days, a lot of developers want to attract as many people as possible. However, it's not really
Yeah.
attracting the more, the gamers that kind of want more organic aspects in their games, and we're just not seeing enough of it.
I mean, I think it if we had like more organic stuff for I think for gamers it would be like people that have played games for a long time
Hmm.
will like they'll find those stuff instinctively, but like compared to new people that publishers want to play the game, it might be a bit more difficult. I think instead like that's why map markers or stuff are becoming a lot more prevalent.
Yeah, and sometimes I tried playing Hogwarts Legacy with a lot of restrictions, like no rolling for bosses and no heads up display. And I felt like that the best thing I could do was just turn off as much heads up display as I could. I feel like that was
Mm.
enough. I think I went way too far with Hogwarts Legacy in terms of restrictions, which I think it kind of destroyed my experience because one thing I definitely learned from Hogwarts Legacy is that hard mode is not regulated or play tested well enough in a lot of mainstream games.
Right, yeah.
Because I've experienced problems before with the hardest difficulty. The Witcher 3, which I was actually able to finish it on the hardest difficulty, but it had so many bugs. A lot of enemies just kind of the enemies give up too quickly. The enemies have a very slim boundary line in Witcher 3, and you can just run off and they'll just stop chasing you. And in Dark Souls, that does happen, but it's just the level design, it doesn't compromise. The level design doesn't allow that boundary to compromise too much. Of course, you can kind of just stand there and just fish them back and forth, but a lot of the times is very brutal. But in The Witcher 3, you can pretty much do it almost 100% of the time, except when it's purposely gated off an arena like Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy had a lot of exploitation when it came to injury boundary. You could easily just bottleneck, and that was also a strategy compromise because there was flanking is also really, really bad in Hogwarts Legacy. It doesn't handle multiple enemies very well in terms of combat, because you have to basically just assume something's always going to attack you out of off screen all the time, kind of like with how
Like
God of
from
War,
behind you.
right? Kind of like how the new God of War games work. You kind of have to always assume someone's about to hit you to able to get out of there without taking too much damage, or if you don't want to take damage at all, you pretty much have to roll fire, roll fire, roll fire, and then that's it. And that
Yeah.
that just got old very, very quickly.
And then if you add like the hard mode as well, like enemies just become sponges as well for health. Just
Yes.
have increased health, a lot more attack power, and then like a 1 minute interaction could become like 5 minutes.
Now, God of War has always been like that, and of course, they're still like that today. Um, and that's pretty much what every other video game does. But you have stuff like Resident Evil, where they actually make the hardest difficulties very fun, and I feel that
Exactly.
I feel like they're 100% play tested. Now, of course, I just finished chapter 1, so I'll have to see to the very end. The game did just come out, but I feel like the game should be, whenever a game first comes out, hard mode should be working. I shouldn't have to worry about the game not working combat wise, from a technical standpoint, because that was clearly, present in Hogwarts Legacy. I had enemies that wouldn't disappear, which affected the target locking system. I had items that didn't want to that wasn't registering in terms of throwing them. It was an
Correct.
absolute mess. And
All because of just a difficulty option.
yes, exactly. When
Wow.
I switched back to normal mode, everything worked just fine. Switched to hard mode, it was just total
A mess.
nonsense. Yeah, a mess. Uncharted 4 on crushing mode was a mess, and that one's actually the most. That one's brought up a lot actually. Whenever it comes to problematic hard modes, is Uncharted 4. I don't remember exactly what went wrong, but whenever I was doing it, I noticed there was something going on, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and I just eventually just stopped playing the game and never went back.
I mean, speaking of Naughty Dog games, I'm pretty sure The Last of Us on hardcore mode or grounded mode, and that's in that case is actually it it's a lot more. It that one's actually more play tested, I think.
Oh
Or well,
yes,
it fits a lot more.
it can soft lock you though. I had that because I tried grounded mode on a part 1 back in probably 2013 or 14, whatever version it was, and it soft locked me with the bloater fight because I was using ammo and stuff, which was
Ah,
also also motivated me to use as less ammo as possible on whenever I tried grounded mode later. But I was at the
right.
bloater fight and I had like one bullet. And so I had to basically run around and kill enemies to get bullets, and it just kind of just soft locked me. I couldn't really do much because the bloater throws those bombs those bombs at you, and it has a
Yeah.
huge hitbox that you can barely see. So it's just kind of I don't know. I don't know if I could have made it out of that situation, but it also was a long time ago, and I didn't have as much patience as I do now.
Yeah.
But whenever I tried grounded mode again, it wasn't with the PS5 version. It was still with the remastered for PS4, and
Oh, yeah.
I just didn't use ammo. I didn't use any bullets. I just snuck around and just
Farm as much as possible
yeah, just
or
collect as
find
many bullets. And
resources.
I basically didn't use anything until I got to the very last part of the game, which is the hospital, and that's when
Mhm.
I was like, you know what? I have like tons of bullets, tons of weapons. I'm just gonna go crazy. And it was actually very satisfying saving all of my ammo just for the last part of the game where I really needed it.
I mean, in the context of the story as well, that fits perfectly. Like
Hmm.
going guns blazing into the hospital.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend anyone to, if they want to see a really good hardest difficulty, definitely play grounded mode for The Last of Us because it removes mechanics like um, listen mode where you can see through walls. I think that's I don't
That
know.
was a pretty overpowered. It's.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
if I was in a zombie apocalypse and I could just like go to wall and hear stuff, and then suddenly I could like see like what's behind the other side. That's
you know I played The Last of Us Part Two on normal mode because I didn't want to get spoiled for it, and so I didn't want to get stuck playing on hard mode and then
yeah.
instantly see a spoiler. So I just played it on normal mode. I played through the entire game, and then I was like, wait a minute, I totally forgot I had listen mode. but
Oh,
but I don't need it.
just by
It's just
instinct.
whenever I used it, it felt like I was cheating. It's amazing how not using something for so long and then finally using it, it makes you feel like you're cheating. It's definitely a very weird feeling.
Yeah, even though like it's like perfectly a part of the gameplay like
Yeah.
loop.
Same thing with Dark Souls. Whenever I'm doing no rolling challenges for boss fights, and then
Yeah.
I end up rolling for another boss fight, and I'm like, man, it feels like I copped out. It feels like I'm cheating, but it's part of the game. You're supposed to roll out of it,
Yeah.
through attacks. And no rolling is not how the game's designed, and
No.
it's amazing how much you can get away with in terms of no rolling. I mean, it's a lot of running away and going back, of course, but it's also very unique. Just seeing how much you can get away with.
Mm, definitely.
Dark Souls 2, if you're finding the boss fights too simple in Dark Souls 2, just approach it without rolling with the boss fights, and you might have a lot more fun with it.
Because a few weeks ago I started Dark Souls 2 for the first time,
Hmm.
and I what's the dude after the very first one? The Pursuer, I think it is.
Well, you have the last giant and the pursuer.
Yeah, the Pursuer. I haven't gone back to it. I played but I realized like you can perfectly like, I mean, if I tried hard enough, you could perfectly beat it without the rolling. You can just like walk around it and hit him.
Well, you know you can parry him, right?
You can.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, next time I get back to Dark Souls, I gotta parry him.
Yeah, I don't. I actually have a short on YouTube. Maybe I can send you the link if you want it. It just shows me parrying him the entire fight.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Must
that's.
be must be satisfying.
Oh
Hit after
yes,
hit.
yeah. There was one particular part of the fight where I kind of had to circle around him a little bit, but for the most part, just you can pretty much parry every single attack except for his charge attack where his sword turns blue,
Oh yeah.
which you can easily just walk to the side, well, walk around him.
Do a little cha-cha slide to the right and then.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember I used to be so intimidated by the pursuer, but once I figured out his pairing timings, I was like, oh man, this guy's a blast.
Yeah.
I just wish the last giant was a little bit more intimidating. I mean, his stomps
Yeah.
can
I
get a
mean,
little weird, but
the cutscene was really epic. I was like,
oh
all
yeah.
right, this is Dark Souls 2, and then like I just stood under him and just hit the legs, and oh,
Hmm.
it's definitely no fire giant.
Dark Souls 2 gets so much hate, and usually it's very shallow. The complaints. I understand that hitboxes are weird, and you have adaptability you got to worry about, but once
Yeah.
you kind of adapt to the way Dark Souls 2 is designed, it's a fantastic game. It's also it can get very chory, especially with Scholar of the First Sin edition, where you had to find keys all over the place. But once you kind of overlook that and kind of just once you scavenge through the bunch of I guess kind of bloated aspects, it's a really fun game, and I feel like a lot of people just need to overlook that stuff because it's not like it's an open world game where you got to go all the way across the map to find this key. The key's usually in just a
Close
warp
by.
a bonfire warp away, and then you can just move along. I mean, I definitely do not criticize anyone for looking at a guide. Definitely look up where the keys are. If you want to find everything organically by yourself, of course that's entirely up to you. But even I've been playing this game so many times, and I still had to look up where the keys are. because they're in
A lot.
very random places.
Yeah, because I've in term like I've heard lots of people criticize Dark Souls 2, and like I mean I've only gotten up to the Pursuer, but like I think it's a really good game. It's a From Software game, but like
Hmm.
the only issue I have is, like you said earlier, the adaptability,
Yeah.
and it's pretty wonky at times. Like I feel like, oh, okay, I've perfectly rolled this, and then I like look up at my health bar, I'm like missing health. I'm like, but I
Yeah.
didn't get hit. I
I
rolled.
I was doing a no roll for. I think I was doing no rolling. Maybe I wasn't. I was finding the Flexile Sentry without the heads up display. And so I got the fight over with. I was like, all right, got this without taking damage. And then I pulled up then I enabled my heads up display, and I realized I took a chunk of damage. I'm like, where in the world did that happen? And so I looked back at the footage and I saw a little tiny squirt of blood. My character didn't flinch. My character didn't stagger. Just a little squirt of blood, and that's where I took a hit. And I was like, "Come on, really?" So when it comes to when it comes to playing a game without a heads-up display, it's gonna be very tricky because you gotta have a very keen eye to see a squirt of blood coming out of you because you don't know if it's coming out of you
Yeah,
or the boss.
right. Yeah. Dark Souls 2, the adaptability strikes back.
So I guess that would add a little bit because I've been doing these Soul Level 1 playthroughs without the heads-up display, Dark Souls and Demon Souls, and so that'll add a little bit more stress levels and excitement for Dark Souls 2 whenever I get to it.
Hmm.
And so, was there anything else you want to say about Resident Evil 4? I have
Uh, there's one thing I want to say, but like, well, you haven't met Luis yet, right?
I met him at the very end of Chapter 1.
Ah, right. Because the my biggest praise for the remake is the character of Luis,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like what they're doing with him, like his story and the dialogue he says, but above all, his voice actor. Because like I mean I've lived in Spain, so like I've interacted a lot with Spanish people, but like he is Spanish. Like he sounds Spanish. Everything about him is just so good.
You meet him very early in this version, right?
Yeah. Uh, I think you meet him a bit earlier. Yeah. But I
Yeah,
won't spoil I won't spoil the later interactions. Just his voice actor is just. I think he definitely like deserves like a whole lot of awards for his performance. I think.
I really like the beginning of Chapter 2 with the chain
Oh
sequence.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was really funny. Yeah, a lot of passion and care went into this version of Resident Evil 4. I absolutely love it.
Definitely.
It might beat Resident Evil 7 in terms of Resident Evil games for me because I didn't when I first played Resident Evil 4, the original. I remember enjoying it and respecting it for its ambitions, but I hated the QuickTime events so much.
Wow.
And then this version comes out, I'm like, okay, well, it's like they made this one for me almost.
I mean, for me, I agree with you. Like, I respected the original, but like for me, I just think like every about the original, it was just it did everything really good and nothing like terribly bad. The only bad thing I'd say about it is the pacing on the island.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot. I mean,
And
the island's mentioned a lot in terms of criticism. I don't
yeah,
remember much of it really.
that's a negative. If you don't remember much of it, I think
Yeah, I
shows
don't.
it's a bit less memorable.
Whenever I hear island, I keep thinking about the swamp from Resident Evil 5, which obviously isn't the same game. But whenever I hear island, I just think about that part. Do you know what part I'm talking about in Resident Evil 5, where you're kind of in like a
I,
swamp, kind of you're fighting with a lot of against natives, I think.
I haven't played RE5 yet or 6. Those are the
Oh,
two ones I'm missing from the main lines.
yeah, Resident Evil 5 was not bad. It kind of suffers the same problems, except it's just not a. It's got more problems than Resident Evil 4. That was kind
Yeah.
of the issue.
I heard also the AI is a pretty big problem for RE5.
Mm. Yeah, the AI system is not perfect.
So RE7 is your favorite Resident Evil game?
Yeah, that one absolutely terrified me. I to this day I still have dreams about it.
Wow, yeah.
The
It was
atmosphere
a
was
scary
totally.
game.
I'm sorry.
It's really scary game.
Oh yes, I whenever I play it, I'm just like I know I'm going to get a really awesome horror experience. A lot of people complain about the enemy variety not being wide enough, but I never considered that a criticism. For some reason, that never bothered me. I thought the variety was just fine considering its length.
I mean, the variety for me was a problem because like when you got to the underground area, like the mines,
Mm-hmm.
like I was just so fed up with looking at the same enemies all the time. I just ran through the whole area and pretty much skipped it.
Yeah, they could at least change the colors for the ones in the mine, you know? I mean, it's a salt mine,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they could at least made them a little bit wider with some extra attacks. So I mean, I do understand that they could have added more attacks to the enemies at least.
Yeah, because it ended up just with how they were. Like they do the same loop. They'd come at you and like swaying a bit and do like the lunge attack or the predictable strike, and then you just block, raise your hands up, and everything's fine. It,
A friend of mine asked me, he was like, "Oh man, since they upgraded Resident Evil 4, what do you want to see next?" I'm like, "Well, let me finish Resident Evil 4 first." But to answer your question, I would love to see them upgrade Resident Evil 7. He's like, "Well, that game came out 2017. It's too early." I'm like, "Yeah, I understand that, but there's a lot of unused content that they could re-release in an upgraded version of the game." And so I would, any day now, if they announce that, I would love it. Because
soon they're gonna remake Resident Evil 9 before it even comes
yeah,
out.
yeah, there you go. But there's a lot of interesting aspects that was cut from Resident Evil 7. Like there was going to be a family dog, there was going to be more members of the family, and I'm like, man, I want to see more of that.
That would been cool.
A scary looking dog chasing you around. Ooh, I would love that.
Oh, yeah. Just minor spoiler, but just wait until you get into the later
Oh
chapters of
yeah,
RE4.
I keep forgetting that. Yeah, I heard some criticisms about how the dogs look in Resident Evil 4.
Really?
Yeah, did you have a problem with how they look?
No, I think they looked amazing, like spectacular.
Okay, well,
Scary dogs,
maybe it's just that one guy that had a problem with it, and maybe he was just
maybe.
finding things. It's funny whenever a game is doing so well, and whenever you can tell when you listen to a review of a game when they're nitpicking. It's like, yeah, I didn't like
Yeah,
the way this grass looked. I thought the texture was a bit off. I'm like, oh man, you're just looking for stuff to complain about.
yeah.
uh,
Speaking of dogs in Resident Evil 4, and going back to the original Resident Evil 4, my favorite section of the original Resident Evil 4 was the. Do you remember the courtyard section where you were going through like the hedge maze and the dogs would jump out of the bushes at you?
yes.
That's my favorite section of the game, and it's
Oh, it's really good in this version.
yeah.
All right.
That, sorry, I mean it is a spoiler technically, but
Oh no. um, in terms of original aspects, I'm pretty sure a lot of people expect certain things to be in it.
yeah, and they're also well, of course, naturally there was going to be cut content that's a no-brainer, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But then some of the times when you're playing the remake, you're like, okay, you're going by and you're thinking, when's the next section going to come up? And then something else happens, and you're like, okay, right, they cut something out to make this. And then sometimes you see like Easter eggs, I can't go too deep into it, but like you see some Easter eggs, and you're like, okay, that's a reference to what happened in the original.
So explain to me whenever you go into another section of the game. Like, let's just stick with chapter one. So
Mhm.
in chapter one, you have like six enemies at the very beginning. With the house, and then
Yeah.
the trail leading to the village. So you get to the village, and obviously it works on a time system where you got to you got to survive for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter how many
Mhm.
enemies you kill. And
Yeah, you just gotta survive.
so, I know that's pretty much ripped straight from the original game. So how do you handle that section of the game?
Like the
Like,
like the vi- like
do you shoot as many enemies as you can, just kind of spending ammo, or do you just run around for 5 minutes?
I mean, this compared to the original, like, because this version was a lot more hectic, this village fight, than compared to the original.
Hmm.
So, because usually in the original, I take the shotgun and then I just stand on the roof, kick down the ladders, and just shoot the enemies when they came close. But now in the remake, that was not an option. I had to keep running. I had to keep looking back, shooting, running, throwing grenades, everything, because
Was
the
it
enemies they did not stop coming.
so? They're a lot more aggressive compared to the original.
Definitely, because also, because Leon moves a lot more. He can now aim, walk, and shoot at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
compared to the original, and the that means the enemies naturally have to adapt more in terms of AI and level design. They have to be more. They have to fit to Leon's new added mobility, and that means they have to be a lot more aggressive, and that's makes the game a lot more scarier.
Oh yes, the Chainsaw Man is there two of them or just one?
In the village attack.
Yeah, yeah. I could have swore there was two of them. Was there two of them in the original, or am I just
I,
are they so is the Chainsaw Man so impactful that it feels like there's two of them?
I think it might be so impactful that you think the two of them.
I don't know why I've always thought about that because I had the same feeling in the original, and then when I played the demo, I was like, oh man, I got two of these guys I got to deal with, but it's always just been one.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
And it's so weird. I
So,
don't know why that's happened to me. Because I even told my
sounds like
wife,
some
told my,
Mandela effect.
I told my wife I was talking to her. I was like, man, there's two of these guys walking around, and is that's so strange how that worked out. But because I could have swore I killed the Chainsaw Man, and then I saw him later. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, the second one comes up if I go into the house, but it turns out I didn't kill the Chainsaw Man. I just knocked him down for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because what I was doing in the demo, I was going up to where he comes out of that door, because you can trigger him in like two or three ways. You can either walk up to that door at the other side of the map, you can go inside the house, or there's a particular time limit until where he comes in. I don't know how long. It might be half, like 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Well, yeah. I haven't tested it out. Maybe you can get two of them, but I don't know.
I guess really, if you didn't want to deal with the Chainsaw Man, just run around. Don't go inside that one specific building.
Yeah.
I like so the tower. It wasn't always collapsible, right? Because that's one thing that they wanted to prevent exploitation of.
Yeah, just going up to the top and camping there.
That's actually one of my first strategies in the demo. I climbed that tower and just
I
knifed them
didn't.
in the face. But it didn't last long because the Chainsaw Man comes up and he just, you had to be a lot more confrontational with him, and
Yeah.
eventually the whole thing collapsed. So that strategy went out the window regardless, because I could just stand right there at the top of the ladder and just knife them all day until my knife broke. I guess it's either until my knife broke or the Chainsaw Man came up there, and I
Like,
really the best thing you could do for that section, from what I've played, from what I experienced, was just running around, finding a good route to run around, just jump inside and delay the enemies a little bit, and then jump back out and just keep running and just repeat the same route.
yeah.
And
But I mean,
hmm?
maybe also if it gets too hectic, you could go through the barn and then shoot the like fire the fire lantern that's in the barn to like set on fire.
That seems to happen automatically. If you don't do it, the game somehow does it. I don't know what causes it. That's another thing that could be. There's a lot of stuff that can be tested out in that village alone, which is really wild. Um,
It's it's like an immersive sim, like very loose immersive sim elements. Like
mhm.
everything's like so interactable.
And the barrels, the items are randomly generated, right? Because I don't remember getting, because I can't consistently find like ammo in particular barrels.
No, yeah, because it uh there are and I don't think this is a spoiler, but there are charms in the game that you unlock
Hmm.
when you meet the merchant later on, and
Right.
they give like certain like stat increases, like a 15% chance of more finding more ammo drops, or
Okay.
handgun ammo, or more green herbs, or more uh more chance of finding resources to craft stuff. I mean, yeah, it's all random in the end.
So I wonder how important charms will be in terms of what I want from the game. Because if it's just increasing the amount of ammo, I don't really need that. Especially if I don't know how long using nothing will last. Because that's how I've been playing, is just not using anything. I'm just trying to see how much I can get away with in terms of manipulating enemies in the area to eventually get out. But I know the game has got to get more aggressive and more complicated than that. So I'm not trying to promise anything. That's
Yeah.
just how I'm playing for right now until I'm forced to use something.
I mean, yeah, definitely later on, like you'll be losing a lot of resources.
Hmm. Like
And then the classic, Resident Evil like feeling. You're like you suddenly get like all the item, like lots of items, like right outside this room, and you're like, yep, something's gonna go down in the next one.
I, the only thing I've used so far is just the knife. Now I record the encounters without using the knife, but I go back and I do some cleanup, but I still don't shoot the enemies. I just knife them. But obviously the blue medallions or blue medals, I shoot those. That's pretty much the only
Yeah.
thing I've used my gun for, is just shooting those down. But for the enemies, I've been having to either sneak up on them or parry them and chop their arms off. I love that, by the way, chopping their arms off for a parry after a parry.
Yeah.
Because I was cleaning up the village after that scenario was over with, and one just pops out of a cabinet, and I brought him up to the roof, and I just chopped both of his arms off because I just happened to remember it. So that's really cool. The brute, by the way, how I handled the brute, he knocks down the barn door, of course, and you can just run right past him because he's still in animation recovery of his weapon. And
Ah.
oh, you didn't know that?
Oh. No, I didn't know because like yeah, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's just something it was just one of those things I tried just to see how much of the hitbox is lingering around. But yeah, you can just walk right past him during his animation recovery. That way you're not trapped in that barn because he does that spin to win attack.
I mean, in that spin to win attack, the dodge quick time, like quote unquote quick time event shows up where you just press circle and then you can dodge it.
Okay, even though he's doing it multiple times, you can dodge it.
Yeah. Well, you have to press the button at the right time in the sequence of it.
Okay, all right. Also, what I found, another thing I found interesting, and I think it was in the original game too, where the chainsaw. Wait, hold on, remind me. The chainsaw guy can inflict damage on the other Ganados.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so the same thing works with the brute. When he's spinning to win, he can knock other opponents. I mean, other
yeah.
Ganados. And so I'm running across the bridge, and there's one other Ganado running after me, and so he starts doing the spin to win and knocks him off the bridge. I recorded this
Wow.
too. I plan on uploading it as a short later. But that's whenever I play on professional mode, I plan on playing the game a little bit differently, like trying to get the enemies to kill each other without using items, just to see how viable that is. Because of course you can't do that in the village because it's timed and there's just infinite enemies. But for that second
Yeah,
arena, second encounter, you can get the brute to probably kill them all, knock them off the bridge if it's done correctly. And then
yeah.
the third encounter is dynamite focused. You can have I actually uploaded a short about that earlier today of me manipulating the dynamite throwers into killing other enemies. That was really fun. I probably spent more time there than any other encounter in the game because it's just really fun. Using Home Alone um,
Yeah.
tactics. That's even how I labeled the short. I labeled the short. You don't need weapons when the Ganados are Home Alone villains.
They take those out.
And also the bear traps. Whenever they get stuck in a bear trap, you can kick them and it kills them instantly.
Yeah.
So that's fun. Yeah, I think that's.
Speaking of the bear traps, I think they're like super well placed now. Like I keep running into them like on accident, even when I try
Yeah.
to avoid them.
See, I love stuff like that because you got to memorize where they are. Because I
Yeah,
played this section several times, and I eventually had it burnt in my memory where they were. I'm like, okay, well, I'm coming up. I got to make sure I walk to the left a little bit. I mean, you can see them once you're aware that they're there. But when you're first
yeah,
walking into an area, it's almost like they're invisible. It's wild.
right. Like the eye doesn't pick up on it. It's
Later on, they're covered with leaves, aren't they? That's how it was in the original,
yeah.
or maybe I'm thinking about another game.
No, they definitely get a bit more hidden. Yeah,
Nice, awesome. I'm glad they do stuff like that. Um, and so yeah, you can use that to your advantage without using anything. You can just do a roundhouse kick and kill them instantly. And what else? What else?
but so uh, you've gotten to the Luis section. You met Luis, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
I got to the part where I have to reclaim items, if you know what I mean.
okay, okay, because like the section like right after that section is it okay if I talk about that one section?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Because like I was surprised like there's also like this bridge there like in the middle of the valley like the mine valley where you remember from the original where you had to like it's the mines in this valley sort of place.
Ah, heck. It's been so long since I played the first one. I don't really remember a whole lot about the level designs.
Just like right after the merchant when you first meet him.
Uh-huh.
So there's this bridge there. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just cross the bridge, and then one of the Ganados just decides to throw an axe to cut the ropes of the bridge, and it just falls open, and then like I'm gone.
Hmm.
I did not expect that at all.
Oh, wow. I had to play to understand what you're talking about, but um, were you able to kill the brute in that one section?
I think I've killed everything. Yeah, I used all the ammo I have.
Okay, because I mean, of course, you had to go back and get all the items and stuff, and you don't need a brute chasing you around.
Yeah.
How did you eventually kill him?
Uh, by just sheer willpower using like all the ammo I had.
Oh wow, took every little bit of it.
Yeah. But then like once because I feel like the game's also a lot harder now because like when the Ganados team up on you and then they coordinate a lot more. Sometimes they grab you and then they grab you from behind and the others can like hit you from the front.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so there's lots of shotgun shells and handgun ammo. That's how I took out the
And
brute.
it's gonna sound very anticlimactic how I killed him, but my strategy for getting through without using anything, he hits that trip wire, that bomb,
Yeah.
and so that inflicts damage on him. I don't know how much. I don't know how much. I don't know how damage works in terms of enemies, because of course they don't have life bars or hit points that pop up.
Yeah.
So that happens, and I just walk out. The gate rises up once you put the gear in the little system, whatever
Mhm.
cogs. Yeah, you put the cog in aligned with the other cogs, and the gate rises up, and you cross the bridge, and then you have to move that cart out of the way, and so you get that done. And so it's funny. You'll have to watch. If you want me to, I can send a link to that to what I did because it's really funny.
I
Because
think I'll check it out after. Yeah.
because I pushed the cart out of the way, which actually happens to have another Minotaur head on it. I thought that was funny how you're being chased by a guy with a Minotaur head, and then you see a cart with another. Wait, I'm saying Minotaur head. I'm sorry, a bull head. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about
Bullet. Yeah.
I'm thinking about Castlevania right now.
Oh.
That's where I'm drawing it from is Castlevania. Heck, even on Twisted Metal Black, I called it a Minotaur head mask, but it's a bull head. Um, yeah, there's another bullhead on the card. So once you get to that part, that's where the enemy boundary cuts off. That's where their aggro registering
Oh,
stops.
it just stops.
Yeah, and then you'll see the brute running across the bridge. It is hilarious, and I got that part in the final footage of the video. And so what happens if you stand there for maybe a few more minutes, you can sneak back and stab him in the neck and kill him.
No way.
Yes, he'll stand exactly where he
Wow.
was when he busted the door down. And when I did that to him and it killed him instantly, I'm like, what the heck? Come on, I was kind of expecting a bigger fight than that, but yeah, I was able to blow him up with a tripwire, wait for him to run back to his default position, sneak up on him, stab him in the neck, and then that was it.
It does show that stealth is a pretty viable option in a lot of cases in the game now.
Yeah, it just makes the game more interesting because I feel like there's so much more I can apply to those three encounters alone. This game is one of the longest Resident Evil games, right?
Yeah,
And so I'm
definitely.
I'm so excited. I mean, if these first few encounters have so much viability when it comes to variations of strategy, I cannot wait to see what else the game has to offer. Because
I like if because like right now I think I've played like 9 hours or 8 hours or something like that,
hmm
and the only flaw I have is with one of the voice actors. But like
Ashley.
other than that, no, no, not for. I love Ashley as a voice
Okay.
actor. She does a great job. But Ada's voice actor.
I'm going to ask a question. Because it was in the original game. Can you know can you be called a pervert in this one?
No, they cut that line.
Okay. I figured they would because that would have been a bit risky, I think.
Yeah. And also with like the characterization of Ashley now, she's not like as now she's a lot less annoying. She's got a lot more personality now. She's actually a person now compared to the original that
she's
was just like
she's actually a person. That's great. Yeah, I can't wait to get to her sections. I don't remember you played as her in the original, right?
yeah, you did, yeah.
Okay, I don't remember that. It must have been a really small section.
I I really liked that section in the original. It was like probably one of the scariest in the game because you're completely defenseless.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I just don't remember it. I'll have to. I guess one. Well, it's gonna be different, obviously, in this one, but
Yeah.
um, okay. So yeah, I wish I could say a little bit more, but that's all I've done in the game. I'm just playing the game really slowly because I'm just savoring it. But I'm also planning on doing a professional run.
Yeah.
I think the professional run only in New Game Plus, or can you start fresh?
Uh, maybe I'm not sure. Maybe you have to do on New Game Plus, or once you do beat the main game, you could start fresh with professional.
Yeah, I don't know why they would just leave it New Game Plus, but oh, Madhouse. No, not Madhouse. I'm thinking about Resident Evil 7. Mad Chainsaw mode from the demo. Is that something they plan on adding later? Because that was a really cool mode from the demo.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tried it, but I saw clips of it. I'm like, this chainsaw guy, he's absolutely crazy. Like, if I'm a bit sad that it's not in the game, like, or he's not there as like a special boss.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe he comes later on in the game as a special boss. I don't know because I haven't finished the game yet.
I would hate that would suck if they just left that for the demo because that was such a cool feature in the demo. Because I thought
Yeah,
the chainsaw guy looks so much scarier with that skin.
yeah,
And so I think it would be a huge missed opportunity if they just don't do something like that because that's incredibly unique. Having a harder difficulty, changing the way enemies look is just jarring. They
yeah.
need to implement it if they're working on it, which is the reason why it's not in the game. I just hope they put it back into the game because the one thing that really sucked about the demo was you had to randomly come across it. You
No,
just
there's actually a code for to do it. To actually on the title screen, you could put in like a code that could instantly activate it.
really, man.
Yeah,
I wish I would have known that. But oh well. I'm hoping they'll come out with it later. For the
I
full game.
I think they'll maybe add him for like mercenaries when that drops on April 7th.
Okay. Well,
But
there's
that's a theory. That's a theory.
yeah. There's hope. I'm pretty sure they will. I don't know why they wouldn't because that's just too cool to be left out just for a demo.
Yeah, I think that this game's going to have long legs, like in terms of like post game content. I think.
Oh yes, yes. Man, this game is. I want to be able to play it some more today, but I got other stuff to do like John Wick 4 and everything. But
Yeah.
um, let's go ahead and feel like we talked a good bit about Resident Evil 4. I think we already talked about strategies and oh well, you're going to watch the video later, but I thought it was very fascinating with the last section of the game. Sorry, last section of chapter 1, where you have that dude standing over the little latch. Um, you know what I'm talking about before you see Louise.
Oh right. Okay. Yeah. 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 Where he's hiding Luis. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I thought that was gonna ruin my no item usage because using a knife would kind of cancel that out. But turns out you can just stand there, interact with the hatch, and he'll just totally ignore you.
Oh. Wow.
He might shove you, but he won't be able to get an attack in. But I thought that was really funny. You'll see that in the video if you decide to watch it later. So
uh, well,
oh sorry.
no, no. I just said I will.
So the first question I asked was how long can you wait for core gameplay in a video game? And so this is debatable, I suppose, on what you consider core gameplay. Let's just say um, let's just say a game starts out cinematic, so you're
Mhm.
just slow walking for the first maybe 10 minutes of the game, and then you're finally given your gun, and the heads up display pops up with the items that you can use. That's what I can personally consider core gameplay. Like with Dark Souls, you're thrown immediately into the core gameplay. But The
Yeah.
Last of Us, it takes maybe 15, 20 minutes to finally get your gun, and you're set into the core gameplay. So I'm just wondering, what's your tolerance level? How long can you play until the core gameplay is unlocked?
Um. I mean, I think it depends a lot. Like for example, Doom 2016.
Hmm.
Have you played Doom?
Oh yeah, yep.
So the core gameplay is like it's like you kind of get it from the start, like the guns and everything.
Hmm.
But it's a bit related to the question, but like if the core gameplay doesn't really evolve, either.
Mm-hmm.
Then I get like super turned off of it.
Okay. So I mean, like, how long can you wait it out? Can you do you have like do you have a tolerance cap, or can you just keep playing a game until until it's over?
If definitely if the story is very if it's engaging, if the story is engaging, I can like play with like no gameplay and just like keep going forward.
It's like with Persona 5, where apparently it takes 5 hours to finally get into the main gameplay.
Yeah, I can confirm that it is.
So you can
It,
tolerate that.
yeah, I can tolerate it because like the story is engaging, the characters are very fun to interact with, and the turn-based combat and like the art style and everything, it's just a spectacle to just watch all the time.
Wow. Okay.
It's just got so much character to it.
I think I only played an hour and stopped.
You're missing out.
That's what I keep hearing, but man, I can't tolerate dialogue, dialogue text pop ups. I can't do
Oh,
it. I can't.
yeah, fair enough.
I just wish I could just skip all of it, but they don't let you do it.
There is I mean, you could fast forward, like it just skips all the dialogue just until like your next like important
Yeah,
dialogue choice. Then you choose one and it fast forwards.
I did that a lot, but it's just you would think after an hour of doing that you would finally get to the gameplay, and I was like, yeah, I guess this game's just not for me.
I mean, the tutorial is long, but it is a very
Yeah, and that's kind of a shame too, because I mean I do want to experience it, you know, because it's got a lot of high praise, but I just if I'm bored by the time I get to it, I just don't know if I could do it.
yeah,
You know what I
definitely.
mean? It's
I
kind of
mean,
like,
speaking of Persona 5, like I had a problem like because I only got recently got a PlayStation 5,
mm,
so I had 90 hours on Persona 5 on the PS. And then when I transferred my save data to the PlayStation 5, I was sent back to hour 65 of my playthrough.
oh, that's another thing that sucks. If you get all your data removed and you have to go through that whole, I don't see how people can play a new game of something like Persona 5 where you had to go through 5 hours of dialogue just to finally get to the game. I don't understand that kind of patience.
I mean, definitely on the first playthrough, you have I think you have a lot more patience because like you experience it for the first time, so you're like waiting to see what happens. But then
Hmm.
like if you have to do it again, it's just not the same.
I guess in a way I kind of can feel I can kind of relate to people that it's like me spending maybe 20 hours or so on a boss in Elden Ring, and people are like, "Man, how in the world do you just fight the same boss for that long?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just just want to learn more about it." But maybe that's just how they feel in terms of something like Persona 5 where they can spend 5 hours listening to text, and I'm like, "Oh, how in the world do you do that?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it comes down to like our preferences in games, like what we're looking for, what we're wanting to experience.
Yeah, and I guess story is just one thing I don't really totally prioritize in gaming because in the end I'm just trying to play a game and not listen to a story unless the story is just really compelling. Like The
Mm.
Last of Us, I love the stories in The Last of Us, and then it used to be God of War. I'm not a big fan of what they're doing now, but Resident Evil, I like the stories in Resident Evil. Uh,
I mean, they're very very simple to follow because it's not your in your face. It's just fun to experience
yeah, yeah,
to
and
follow along.
yeah, exactly. It's not trying to do too much. I just I enjoy the complexity more in the gameplay than in the story.
Yeah.
Um, so to
It's a bit
speak.
like in Nintendo games, like they don't really like have as a focal point on the story. They're a lot more focused on like the gameplay, like how the experience that they want you to feel through playing the game, and the story's just there to like kind of motivate you a bit forward.
And when it comes to games like Horizon Zero Dawn, where they're just kind of over explaining something like an event that occurred, I'm like, I don't want this to go. I don't want this explained to me. I just want it lightly hinted at. I want it ambiguous so I can think about it on my own time. I don't want a character sitting there and explain for 30 minutes on why it happened and how it
Yeah.
happened. Um, was there anything else you want to touch on in terms of that? So you say you don't have a time limit. You just pretty much just push on as long as you're interested in the story.
Yeah, or it's not really the story. Like it's also like the gameplay as well. If it's constantly engaging me. So
Even
I
if
mean,
it's not the core gameplay.
yeah, I guess I kind of flip flop between those two. Like if the gameplay keeps me going, I keep going. If the story keeps me going, I'll keep going.
Gotcha. Okay.
But then there's Doom. Like I have to go back to Doom. I had to drop Doom completely because the story was practically non-existent, and the gameplay just like it. Once I had all the weapons unlocked, there was nothing like new to it. It was just the same enemies in the same like
Hmm.
locations that looked the same, and I couldn't go on.
I miss when games just had very few cutscenes, where it made the cutscene special. Like in God of War, whenever a cutscene came up, I was very excited to see what else was going on in the story. And then you had a few more hours of gameplay, then another cutscene popped up, and you got to see a little bit more of the story. I kind of missed that, and
Yeah.
I guess that's why I really like. That's one of the reasons why I love Death Stranding, because it felt like, even though there's a lot of cutscenes, I really appreciated whenever they popped up. Um, Even though it's in-game rendered cutscenes, it's not like pre-rendered like the original God of War games. God of War
Oh
one
yeah.
and two, and even the original Last of Us was pre-rendered cutscenes. But of course, in the PS5 version, it's not pre-rendered anymore.
No.
Um, that was one of my little tiny pet peeves about older games, because you can change your outfit, but it wouldn't. Of
Changing
course,
the
it wouldn't
cutscene.
change in the cutscenes because it was pre-rendered, like in God of War, where you
Yeah.
could change into a cow outfit or a businessman, and it would cut to the main cutscene. And it's just regular Kratos. I was like, that's why I love games like Tony Hawk Underground, because in the cutscenes it kept your outfit, but
That's it.
also it will change your outfit randomly depending on what's going on in the story. It will just throw a Hawaiian shirt on you, but it was still your character. They just was like, oh, you're wearing this now. um,
That's yeah.
so anything else you wanted to touch on before I move on?
Uh, if there's good gameplay, you keep going. If there's a good story, I keep going.
All right. Favorite games. We've kind of touched on this a little bit, but favorite games on the hardest difficulty. Which game do you think has the best hardest difficulty in your opinion? Basically.
I mean, the like because like I because I don't usually replay games. Like I usually
Mm-hmm.
just like play game on the standard difficulty. But sometimes when I see like the reward options like really good, then I go back and like try to do it on hard.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like one of the best hard modes that I've played is Metroid Dread,
Okay.
and because it's really hard. It's a very challenging game like on standard, but then like on hard it becomes a lot harder. You take the enemies deal a lot more damage and stuff, but it's just because the gameplay just feels so good to play and like slide around and shoot stuff as Samus. It's yeah.
Why don't you think games reward players anymore for beating the game on the hardest difficulty? Why do you think that went away? I mean, it's not like it was very consistent in gaming, but it just seems like it just came back. It came up around the early 2000s and then eventually just went away altogether. Mostly.
Maybe they collectively all watched the completionist video and they want to see a reaction to him not having being a bit disappointed that they don't reward him.
Because it's like with the original God of War, if you complete it on the hardest difficulty, you get stuff like a special video for a possible sequel.
Right? Yeah.
And so I do miss stuff like that. So if there's a hardest difficulty for a game, you want to get rewarded for it, right?
Yeah.
Not just experiencing the game, to a full technical standpoint of terms of strategy and approach, but you want like some kind of cutscene or some kind of skin to wear.
Yeah. Uh, the most recent example I can think about in that is Sonic Frontiers
Hmm.
that came out last November. Like in the hard mode was a joke. It wasn't hard mode at all. But like the hard mode gave you a whole extra final boss and the extra post credit scene if you beat it on hard mode, which was pretty neat.
I'm just wondering, for games like Hogwarts Legacy and maybe heck even Death Stranding, difficulty options just don't really seem to make that big of a difference unless it's just buggy like Hogwarts Legacy. Because
Mm.
you can be playing on hard mode, but if you decide to switch to normal mode, there's not that major of a difference in terms of damage or how much damage you can take. So I'm like, man, why do they even bother sometimes? Why don't they just have easy and normal? If hard mode is not working, why even implement it? Just add it on later, if it's not
Yeah.
working entirely. So I just don't really understand that. Death Stranding, I mean, it worked just fine on hard mode. It was clearly play tested and regulated, but there wasn't really anything in Death Stranding where I'm like, oh man, I'm playing on hard mode. It just felt like just a regular playthrough of Death Stranding.
I mean, I guess in open world games because like it's because I don't know how the gameplay works or how you like level up in Death Stranding, but like I'm just like assuming because like it's a lot more open, you have a lot more options to tackle certain situations, which is why a hard mode wouldn't necessarily become so hard because it just gives you a lot more options to do stuff. Whereas, for example, in a Resident Evil game, hard mode just instantly becomes harder because of how much smaller and condensed the game actually is.
Yeah. Resident Evil 4, this one, the hardcore mode just makes enemies tougher, right? That's all they do.
I think less resources as well.
That's also because the one thing I really liked about Mad Chainsaw mode was they actually added enemies, which I thought was really cool. Because the very first enemy you run into has two more behind him.
Yeah,
um, Shadow of the Colossus, the hardest mode, where they add symbols to the colossi. Didn't you like
yeah,
that?
they added extra ones. Yeah.
And the game rewards you for playing on that, don't they?
hmm Like they give you like extra I mean in the remake they give you like concept art and stuff like that as well
Oh,
for hard
nice.
mode.
Man, I need to get back on Shadow of the Colossus for PS4.
Such a good game.
The sound and it was already a beautiful game on the PS2. It's amazing. It just looks even better. It's a um
Like its art direction is
yeah,
like one of the best in like gaming history.
exactly. It's amazing how it was able to run on the PS2. I mean, the Colossi, every time I look at footage for the PS2 and just look at the Colossi, I'm just wondering like how in the world did they manage to do it? I mean, they just
Yeah,
balanced the graphics, capabilities out perfectly for them to accomplish that concept. And
yeah,
one thing I was disappointed though with the upgrade of Shadow Colossus was that they didn't at least attempt to add in the unused colossi, which is not a big deal, but I just would have loved to at least seen the monkey colossi,
yeah.
moving around from. I understand it would have taken a lot more development, but it just would have been so cool to see.
But I guess like in terms of like just what what their intention was from the start was just to give it a graphical update and keep like as much of the same original feel as possible.
Yeah, and I don't know if they eventually will make a Shadow Colossus 2. I mean, I understand we got like Last Guardian and Ico, but it's not a sequel in terms of concept. It's just more of an extension of the world.
Yeah.
Um, but I
I'd
would
be
just
interested how the Shadow of Colossus 2 work though.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question because you don't want it to look exactly the same in terms of how the open world works, but you also still want the organic world direction, like with your
Yeah.
sword. That needs to come back most definitely. I just think that maybe the terrain needs to be a lot rougher, needs to be a lot more platforming in terms of having to glide somewhere, perhaps, and maybe more tools to get around. I just think the world needs to be more brutal in terms of traversal.
Yeah.
Um,
Cuz it's the fact that it has like no like normal enemies around is also very like alien concept for a world like that big.
mhm.
It's just you and your horse running around.
I don't see why they couldn't just kind of blend all three games together to make a second Shadow Colossus. Like maybe bring in some mechanics from The Last Guardian and some other mechanics from Ico. Even though Ico doesn't really have a whole lot to offer, but maybe well, heck. I'm speaking like I've played all the way through Ico, so sorry. I meant maybe Last Guardian aspects, like in terms of pulling spears out of something to throw at enemies. Or I really love the enemy designs in The Last Guardian, where they're just basically possessed armor, yet you can pull their heads off.
Oh
Have you played Last Guardian?
no, I've seen video game donkey's video on it how the big what's the big companion called again?
Oh heck, I don't even remember.
Well, I just saw like the video. The big companion like did everything in its power to annoy Donkey, like throw him let him fall off ledges, push him off. Did not want to cooperate at all in solving it with the puzzle.
You got to play it
The,
though.
I've got it on PlayStation Plus. Like when they because it was part of the PlayStation Plus collection, I think. So I just downloaded before it they remove it, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I remember the puzzles being pretty wild, and plus, like I said before, the interacting with the enemies is very unique because you're a little tiny boy. You can't really do a whole lot, so you kind of have to outwit them.
Yeah, and
um,
rely on the big guy.
oh yeah, I don't know if they fixed the beast in terms of him complying with your commands. I understand it's supposed to be a realistic beast in terms of its mindset, but boy, was it annoying when you try to get him to do something and he wouldn't. There might be some strategy that I'm missing, perhaps, because I only played through it once, so there might be a lot of mechanics that I was missing in terms of commanding the beast to do something.
Yeah.
So the fourth question I had was why do you think linear games are so repulsive to general gamers these days?
I mean, yeah, because like when I was trying to think of like bullet points for that question, I was like wondering, I mean, are linear games actually that repulsive to general gamers?
Mm.
That's what I was thinking, because I mean, like God of War is like God of War or Hogwarts Legacy. Like, I mean, well, I know Hogwarts Legacy is God of War. It's very linear, but it's
Yeah,
also like one of the most popular games like ever.
right.
And yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I guess like I'm gonna have to disagree with with the that they are repulsive, because I feel like linear games like they're much more easier to follow because you don't have to play the game as much. Like for general gamers, like non gamers, they can just easily like go
Hmm.
in, put on easy mode, and then just follow the story, because which are like great stories.
So, when in terms of freedom and openness, do you think there can be too much of that?
Um, I don't think so, because like Breath of the Wild is the most like open game I've played, and it's just so much fun to do. Like, I just hop on the game and then like, oh, I see a shrine, I'll go there now. And then, oh, I need to do the main quest, but then I see another shrine and I just head off there.
Well, do you think there can be too much for one game? Like just having a world that's way too big for the ideas placed inside of it.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
The whole quality over quantity component.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you like make the just make it like super big and like super slow traversal, like, especially like an open world. If you make the traversal like really slow, then could like make it just a lot more less too open because you spend a lot more time in the game, but too slow to actually progress or do anything meaningful in it.
It's like Mad Max is a really good example. The map is way too big for what's in contained in the game because
Hmm.
there are several spots where you're just driving for way too long without coming across anything. And I love the game, but making it too big made it overly repetitive. Now, of course, if it had more stuff to do in it, it'd be great. But if that stuff is too similar, then it eventually gets old. So it's just I think trying to aim for more openness is kind of a dangerous area in terms of quality because you're eventually just going to get a bunch of diluted aspects. It's just not going to work, and I think we just see a lot of that, especially with the Assassin's Creed games, where they just kind of they just plop whatever in there, copy and pasted, and just kind of call it a day. And
Yeah,
instead of just placing something unique, and Far Cry games are also guilty of this. The same, by Ubisoft also and pretty much every open world game really just wants to just throw the same kind of stuff in there because players want more map, more this and that, and it's just I mean, of course, as
yeah,
long as someone is having fun, then who am I to judge them? But eventually, we're just going to come across things just being utterly bland with just a little bit of pieces of unique and fun content in it. But
yeah.
can you see what I'm talking about from that standpoint?
I definitely see it like yeah, too when there's too much, there's just way too much quantity.
Hmm.
But I know a really good open world game, but I'm not sure if you played it. Have you heard of A Short Hike?
Short hike.
A Short Hike.
I have not. Let me look that up. Short hike.
It's this very small indie game, and it's fully open world, and it's like the title says, it's a short hike. It lasts like 1 hour long,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just so much like activities you can do there, but it's all natural. You go there and you feel like you're always progressing with every activity, and then sooner or later you just end up at the end of the game at the right pace.
Huh. It does look really nice. Wow. I wonder why I haven't heard of this one.
I'd highly recommend it.
Let's see. What is
You
it on
just
everything?
it's on everything. I think it's perfect for the Switch. Like if you want to like just play a bit before you go to sleep, just finish the game in like 1 hour.
Is it mostly platforming or does it have some kind of combat?
Uh, it's mostly platforming. There's no combat in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll have to look into
It's
that. That looks it looks really pretty. Looks like
it
it's packed
is
full of stuff. Also, it doesn't look like it's not a whole lot of landscape where you're just walking around. But
no like every corner you turn to, there's like just something to do all the time. It constantly just gives dopamine to the player, but at the same time, it's very relaxing. Like you're not like stressing out that oh I need to do this and this to progress in the game. You just do it and then you naturally.
okay, all right, yeah, I'll definitely add that to my list. When did this come out?
2019, I think, or 2020.
Okay, so it's fairly new. Well, yeah, 2019, July.
19, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. That definitely looks interesting. Okay.
Very good indie game.
And the last question I have for you is it worth applying self-imposed challenges without knowing its viability?
Uh, I think so. Even if it becomes non-viable, like you realize, oh, okay, it's not viable for certain part of like the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, if you're trying to let's take your like no gun in Resident Evil 4,
Mm-hmm.
and then like once you reach like a certain point, you're like, oh, okay, now I actually have to use the gun, but you can like, okay, I can just like put a bumper here, like just like this section, I'll use what I have, but then right after I go back to using a knife, you can. I mean, it depends. It depends on the on how you yourself want to play, I guess.
Yes. Um, Usually my cutoff is when RNG becomes too big of a factor. It can be possible, but only through RNG. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
like in
hmm?
random encounters and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's like with Dark Souls, for example. I like to not roll sometimes with boss fights. However, if it just seems a little bit too thick in RNG, like in terms of I have to walk away way too much in order to get a hit in. Now, of course, there might be some spacing you can do in terms of hugging the boss, but
Yeah,
if like a boss only has one attack that you can really just run away from and come back later, that's kind of where I draw the line. I'm like, man, this boss fight is lasting way too long to do a no roll, and so I commit to eventually just dodging. And so with Resident Evil 4 currently, where I'm just doing no item runs, I mean, it's fun, but it's probably gonna get to a point where it's not going to be fun, and that's where I draw the line, because
yeah,
I get down to the point to where it's either just RNG or it's just
not fun.
bloated, bloated or RNG, or sometimes it's even both, or sometimes it's bloated because of the RNG.
Or
And
sometimes the RNG becomes more prevalent because it is loaded.
yeah, exactly. Like it's just with not using any. For right now, I can get by. I can solve a puzzle, open up the door, and there's also animation invincibility frames in Resident Evil 4 that I've noticed. Like moving that card out of the way, you have a little bit of vulnerability while initiating the animation, but once it gets
Yeah.
started, you are invincible. So that can be used to my advantage, like I did with the third encounter of Chapter 1, because
Hmm.
I have pretty much three enemies, including the Brood, on top of me, but I'm in that iframe, you know,
Yeah.
animation. But they could have easily just attacked me once it was over with. However, I did get lucky, but I decided to keep the footage because I was like, okay, it's done. It's not like it was an incredibly challenging, um, you know, set of restrictions, but it was just very interesting on how it was done. I don't know if other players have discovered these particular maneuvers. Maybe they have, but I just the whole purpose of just doing these challenges and uploading it on YouTube is just to help others out and also discuss it. and
Yeah.
just seeing how others also do it. Maybe I'm pretty, I guarantee you, there's probably gonna be somebody out there that's gonna do it way faster than me. That's just how it works. There's always gonna be somebody better, and I'm
The
definitely not gonna be.
speedrunners.
I'm definitely not in the top 50. I'm not in the top 100. I'm just someone that likes a challenge, and I just upload it because it's just I want to add something to the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, that's all my questions. I kind of wanted to start wrapping things up around 1 hour and 40 minutes. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up for me, or something you wanted to add on?
Um, like the one thing I'm like just that's good. Like since we've talked so much about it RE4, like you need to get through the game. It's just so good.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't be surprised if like next week I'm still in chapter 2 because of how stubborn I am. You'll probably ask me, "Oh man, are you on chapter 10 yet?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm still in chapter 2, trying to figure out the maneuvering around the enemy." Because that's just how I love to play video games these days. I just love this. If I can get a sense of something is possible, I'll spend an incredible amount of time on it. Because there's a particular part of gaming where you know it's your fault, and so you want to improve on your skill of that level design or enemy
Yeah.
encounter. But when something starts feeling, like I mentioned several times, RNG, that's when I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to do this anymore. But I might just continue on with that standard on the next encounter. However, if
Yeah.
it starts being consistently unreliable in terms of my self-imposed challenges, then I might go like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to start using my knife instead. And if that stops working, I might have to start using my gun, but it might be to a very small level, like just getting a headshot to kill one particular enemy that's causing a compromise in my strategy. I'm like, okay, I got to get rid of this guy because he's ruining everything. He's throwing a piece of dynamite that's blowing up and causing my enemy to take damage. And so I had to get rid of him as fast as possible because everything else is going to fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So stuff like that. There's always stuff like that. You can run into, like with the Elden Beast from Elden Ring. Have you finished Elden Ring yet?
I finally finish Elden Ring, and not a big fan of the Elden Beast.
I like him except for the Elden Stars attack. I think
Yeah. That.
a lot of people say they don't like the fact that the Elden Beast runs away, but I think for some reason I don't mind it. I don't like bosses running away from me, but I don't know why it works for me in the Elden Beast. There's
I,
something, huh?
I I think it might just because of like the spectacle of it, because like it's like from a like a visual perspective, it's just simply stunning to like just watch the Elden Beast and
Well,
how it moves around with grace and stuff.
yeah, and also it does reward you because the Elder Beast can just kind of sit there for a while, and you can kind of just wail on him. So whenever he
Yeah.
runs away, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take a small break. And but the Elden Stars, it's just I hate it so much. It is I think it goes against a lot of design philosophies in the From Software series because
Definitely.
you have to. There are two ways. There's one official way and one unofficial way. I don't know what the strategy guide is going to say, but I can almost 90% guarantee you that it's going to tell you to take the flask of Wondrous Physique to tank it, the Holy
Yeah.
Resistance, because there's
Yeah.
really no other way.
And tanking attacks just like it's not from software. It's
Yeah.
usually dodge.
When I take damage, I look at it as a failure, and that's
Exactly.
one reason why I haven't uploaded my fight with Moog yet, because you have to take damage to get his fight over with.
Exactly. But in Moog sense, it how the I mean how his phase worked. Like he took damage for you and from you, and it was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
How he took your life to extend his and then go goblin mode.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it from a presentation perspective. Same thing with Radon. Radon has an incredible presentation, but his fight is terrible in my opinion. I can't stand
Really?
fighting him. Yeah, because I don't
No.
like running up to him, avoiding his arrows. Even though it's not that complicated. It just takes so long.
Yeah. But for me, like the spectacle of his fight is just a super like I can just end up like just sitting there and like just watching the whole
Hmm.
the whole fight.
Yeah, he's a fight that's a lot more entertaining to watch than actually. I mean, in my opinion, at least, he's a lot more fun to watch someone else fight him than myself fight him because
Yeah,
I just don't find his attacks interesting. I think yeah, he has a lot of potential. I mean, in terms of just having very unique attacks, but he's just constantly moving around. You can't really do a whole lot with him. And usually, most of his attacks for the half of the fight is generally the same, just him waving his weapons around. And I understand he's crazy, he's out of his mind, so it makes sense. I
yeah,
just wish it was just more iconic in terms of something like Menace, where he raises up his arm, slams it down. I just, I was kind of hoping for a more, you know, advanced version of Manus, I suppose. I'm not trying to. I'm not wanting the same fight. I just want something in terms of quality of attacks.
yeah.
Like with Manus, every single attack,
Was
I,
dodgeable.
well, it's just pretty much every single one of his attacks is approachable in terms of attacking, following up and punishing. But with Radon, the way he just kind of spams and then he uses a gravity AoE attack, he can't really follow up respectfully
No.
in terms of combat philosophy, and that's why I just don't really care for him that much. Now his meteor attack is really cool. I wouldn't want something like that to be removed. That's the kind of attacks that I love to see. But in terms of just bosses just going into a frenzy of waving their weapons around just doesn't interest me in a combat philosophy
Yeah,
perspective.
when that happens, it moves away from becoming a duel to just one guy is just how long you can survive the onslaught of attacks.
Yeah, and the same thing goes with a similar situation goes with Melania. I think
Oh, Melania.
she has a lot of potential of being a really awesome fight, but the entire time you're fighting her, you're having to worry about the waterfowl dance, which isn't a really bad attack itself. It's just worrying about it happening is the problem. Because if I'm positioned correctly, it's an incredibly fun attack to dodge through. However, if you're caught underneath her, you either have to perfectly frame perfect dodge through something, or like position the camera in a wonky way to avoid it. But if you don't want to have to worry about something frame perfect, then it's just going to be you're constantly stressing over something, and you have to stay a certain distance away from her the entire fight. I
Yeah.
um I got a no damage defeat of her first phase, and I just didn't really want to do the rest of it. Even though her second phase looks a lot better and a lot more interesting, I'm just kind of by that time I get done with her first phase, I'm just kind of done.
Right. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the Melania fight at all. I think it's one of the worst fights in the whole game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. It's not 100% there yet. It needs some tiny little tweaks. Like the waterfowl dance needs some kind of proper telegraph instead of just her suddenly doing it. Her jumping up in
Yeah,
the
like
air
suddenly going up in the air. Yeah.
and then it's
It
too
doesn't give you
late.
time to react.
It's either too late or you have an opportunity to dodge. And I just don't think that's the proper way to design a boss fight. And she needs like a little, at least maybe a sound cue, or maybe some leaves ruffle up somewhere to where I'm like, oh, she's about to do the waterfowl dance, and so you can properly position yourself. I think she would be talked about a lot more if she just was designed a little bit better, and it's just a shame because her fight, the first phase that I got for her was like 3 minutes long. Her first phase alone. So her fight's just not that incredibly interesting in general. But if
No.
she could just and mainly it's because of worrying about the waterfowl dance. If it wasn't for the waterfowl dance, I think she would be a well paced out boss.
Maybe for the DLC they might give us like a Melania Part 2 fight,
uh,
considering like that it might we might be hearing a lot more about Mikola in the DLC.
yeah, that's definitely a big theory. I mean, apparently, have they confirmed that's her in the thumbnail that they released?
No, they haven't yet, but I think it's more likely probably Mikola.
I think they need to fix the Godskin duo first before Melania.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
That is the biggest speed bump in the main path of the game whenever I get to them, because I don't like using those sleeping pots, or of course I don't summon, and the fight
Yeah.
should work without all that stuff. That's how all the FromSoft games have worked. Everything's been viable in terms of
Solo.
restrictions. Yeah, solo. But with the Godskin Duo, they basically just spit in your face because nothing wants to work properly. Because you have to worry about fireballs hitting you off screen. You have to worry about the noble's roll going over the broken pillars, which shouldn't
Yeah.
happen in terms
No.
of game design. It's like you have something that works. Why in the world is there a chance that he rolls over the pillar? Which is strange because other people that I've talked to in terms of restrictions that have fought the Godskin Duo say that the noble doesn't roll over the pillars. I'm like, yes, he does. I've seen it several times. They're like,
Seen with
oh,
my own eyes.
it's like you got to do it in the middle pillars. I'm like, he's rolled over the middle pillars, so I don't have no idea what. Sorry, I get very upset about the Godskin Duo because it's just such an absurd design in terms of flaws.
Exactly. Like on their own, both of them are like super fun bosses. I love fighting them both on their own.
Oh yeah,
Together, it doesn't work.
I love the Noble because I love parrying him. He's one of the very few bosses where the thrust attack works for me because usually thrust attacks are my weakness. Is my weakness in general, but the Noble is probably the best, has the best thrust attacks I've ever seen out of enemy or bosses in general because it's well telegraphed. You know when it's coming, you can properly time it. I can fight the Noble all day long. I just love the fight. It's spectacular. Now the Apostle, he's still a little bit weird for me, but I love his second phase because his attacks get really strange, but they're well telegraphed.
I mean, for me, like the best thrust attacks I've seen in a video game are probably from Sekiro.
Yeah, Sekiro was pretty good for what it is. Very out of all the From Software games, Sekiro is probably the closest to being perfect, just because it kind of does its own thing, and it does its own thing extremely well. It's similar to Mafia in The Last of Us. But it's almost 2 hours here. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here in a few minutes. I just want to remind the listeners to definitely watch your videos, especially the one of my favorite videos of yours, the one about short games. That video definitely spoke to me because I'm the total opposite. Because I love to play games slowly compared to other people that like to play the games really quickly. And you compared it to fast cars, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember now what I spoke about the video.
I also wanted to ask, what are your ambitions for your channel? You're at about 300 subs, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Yeah, not like 360, I think. Yeah.
Okay. How steady are you getting subscribers?
Right now it's completely random.
Okay.
Like sometimes I can just I upload like a video that I spend like a lot of time working on, then it just gets the usual views. But I'm just happy that people like out there enjoying my videos.
Take advantage. Oh, sorry.
Then like suddenly at one point like I upload a video about a topic that I do find very interesting, but then like the algorithm just like boosts it for some reason.
I find that Punk Disorder, he released a video about Dark Souls, and your most popular video is about Dark Souls in Blighttown, and his most popular video is also talking about Dark Souls. So that's wild how Dark Souls can trigger that many viewers like that. Just randomly, you can talk about so many gaming topics. However, the moment you start talking about Dark Souls, people are like, "Oh, what's this?" Someone's talking about Dark Souls, and it's just very wild how that's happened consistently among other YouTubers.
Because a bit differently, because my second most video on my channel is about Dead Space remake.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a bit surprising for me because I knew Dead Space was big, but not on the level of, like that big, you know?
Oh, so that one got a good amount of views? I looked at your channel earlier. Maybe I need to look at how many views did that video get?
I think right now it's at 8,000, I think.
8,000. Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I don't think I've maybe I watched a little bit of that one. I haven't watched all of it if I have.
Have you played Dead Space remake?
Do I know? Oh no, I haven't bought it because I was going to get Resident Evil 4 because Dead Space upgrade looked a little bit too similar to the original release, and Resident Evil 4 looked vastly different compared to its original release. So I decided to save money for that one instead.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Dead Space remake is also a superb game.
Yeah, it looks wild. I'm just not I respect Dead Space for what it is, but I'm not a big fan of space games. I'm not entirely into that theme for some reason. But I love it as a survival game. But in terms of space, I'm just not really into it that much.
Yeah, fair, fair.
Just like how people are not into medieval games, and that someone can fairly say, "I don't like Dark Souls because it takes place in a medieval setting." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, I understand that because I just don't like space games." You know, I can admit Dead Space is excellent, but I just don't like the theme.
So for you, like, I guess like sci-fi future games are not like really your thing.
Right, exactly. I guess you can apply that with Cyberpunk. I just don't find the theme very
Yeah.
interesting.
So that begs the question, because you're a big FromSoft guy. What do you think about Armored Core 6?
I'm definitely on the fence about it. It just depends on what it does, but I'm so far it's not really pulling me in. I mean, the cinematics look great, but
That trailer was insane.
oh yeah, the trailer looked great. I mean, if it was a movie, I would watch it, but
Yeah,
I just need to see gameplay. I kind of hate it when they release a trailer for a video game, but it's just cinematics. I'm like, I just want to see
right.
I want to see gameplay. I don't care about what this.
They should have done what Resident Evil 4 remake did, because they just like last year in like August or June or whatever, they just like, Here's the gameplay trailer. Yeah, we're making the game."
Hmm. I would love to talk some more, but I kind of need to get a jump on doing other things today.
Yeah,
I hope you didn't feel rushed on this podcast. I hope things were very laid back. I hope we were able to touch on most of what you wanted to talk about.
I think it was a very enjoyable experience. Thank you very much for having me on again. It was a blast.
Oh yes, definitely, and I'll try to get a consistent schedule down in terms of podcasts, and yeah, my next podcast is probably going to be with multiple people because after the after the second Punk Disorder podcast, I had a lot of my other guests come in saying, "Hey, I disagree with his opinion on Sir Alone, and we need to have a massive podcast discussing that." So we plan on doing that sometime in the future. Might be next month. Um, but I definitely appreciate you coming on. And if you don't mind staying after I stop recording and we can just talk a little bit more. But in terms of podcast, is there anything you want to say to your listeners? Anything you want to announce or anything like that?
Um, as of right now, like, one thing going through my mind is like, if anyone listening has not picked up Resident Evil 4 remake yet, I highly recommend that you should.
Oh, yes.
Such a good game.
Incredible. And it's only $60. I thought it was $70 at first because I was going around saying, oh my God, Walmart's got it for $60. It's $10 off. Then one of my friends was like, dude, it's $60. It's the original price is 60. I'm like, oh, well, I feel silly.
Here in Europe, it's €70.
Ooh. Okay, well, what does that translate in terms of American?
I mean, I think it is 60, but the thing is like, there are still lots of €60 games releasing, but then like some games just suddenly get like the €70 treatment.
I looked it up and 70 euros is $75 in the America.
Oh, so I'm straight up losing money then.
Oh man. I don't know how all that works out in terms of ordering stuff online, but all right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here in terms of the podcast. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll definitely try to get Storm back on sometime so we can explore his mind a little bit more. If you wanted to
Part
close
two.
out.
Uh, yeah. Thank you again for having me on, and I hope everyone enjoyed this.
All right. Thank you.